Welcome to What's the TVV, the podcast from the City of Victorville. I'm Public Information Officer Sue Jones. In this, our 6th episode, we thought it would be fun to tackle some of the questions that you posed to us over the last 6 months. And to help us with that is our City Manager, Keith Metzler. Keith, thank you so much for joining us. Probably a lot of people in the community already know you, but for those who don't, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at the city?
First of all, thank you for having me here. I think it's certainly a fun opportunity for me, and certainly I'm hoping it's a fun opportunity for our residents, our listeners. I'm a native here in Victorville. Folks moved here because of the affordability back in the early 80s, 1984. Went through the local elementary, junior high, high school system. Victor Valley Jackrabbits, so class of 93. Left for college, went to the University of California, Riverside, and then came right back. An opportunity was presented to me here at the city, and from that point on, from graduation, I just kind of felt comfortable here, and they continue to provide me opportunities, and I continue to grow here with the organization.
You started as an intern, right?
Yeah. There was a lot of interesting and exciting things to me going on, and a lot of it really had to do with, obviously, the vision that this city had for the reuse of the George Air Force Base. And at that time, it was when the base had closed, and they were trying to figure out who was going to take over the leadership and the ownership of it. And then, of course, redevelop that facility really to try to recapture all of the jobs that were lost with the city here. So from my senior year on in college, I was offered an internship, and that just proved my passion even more for doing the work here with the city. And then, of course, being able to work in a city and be able to have an impact in the same city that you actually grew up. I mean, it was actually easy to fall in love with. And so for me, started as an intern in 1996, and with that, just opportunity continued to be provided where I was able to grow through the ranks. Ultimately serving as Director of Economic Development. The next leadership was Assistant City Manager. And then finally in 2018, I was appointed the City Manager.
Now, as City Manager, can you tell us a little bit about what your responsibilities are in your role?
Well, one thing I can tell you is that the responsibilities on a daily basis change. There's no such thing as a typical day for me. But in private business, we all know what a CEO is, the Chief Executive Officer. And so City Manager is a defined term per the government code, but effectively in our city, the City Manager is the Chief Executive Officer. I'm one of 2 employees that actually report directly to the council. So it's first my role to effectively execute the mission, the vision, and the values of the City Council, but then lead the organization. And so if I were to try to simply characterize my role, it'd be heavily focused on leadership. Here at the city, the leadership that I have to offer is first to the 550 plus or minus employees that make up all of the hard work of our city. But then on top of it, it's the number of organizations that we also represent. It's a very complicated, very fast-paced, very involved city. So in one respect, as City Manager, we're responsible for the general services of the city, which might be, the basic public safety, police, fire, code enforcement, animal services. Those are some of the public safety elements that I have to offer leadership over those. Beyond that, we have a very large water district, and so I also have to provide leadership to a very dedicated team that's responsible for making the water work, getting water to your tap. We have an airport now that we're responsible for redeveloping. And then finally, where a lot of my background is, it's in economic development. So we still have a big focus on leading the economic development efforts, really to kind of shape the economic landscape for Victorville, balance things out from a revenue and expenses perspective. And with that, kind of one of the interesting elements that we use to promote economic development is our involvement in municipal utilities. So we're in the electric business. We're in the natural gas business. There's never a dull day as city manager. It's hard to define exactly what it is, but I think the easiest way to summarize it all is to provide leadership to the entire organization.
So putting this podcast together has been a really great journey for our public information team. It would be good, I think, to share with the community why. Why would we do a monthly podcast?
I think the biggest reason, and it's probably twofold, but I think it comes down to, first, we have a vision here at the city to really try to build a stronger community connection. We have a belief here that if we're providing a service to our residents, we feel that our residents should know us better. And we started that focus probably 6 or 7 years ago. This podcast is just one component of a much broader outreach effort to our community and trying to build a community connectedness. We have a lot of in-person events that we host, and that's one form of communication where we try to connect with our residents and share what's going on. Obviously, we've got a big social media footprint. We also have our electronic or email newsletter. We do all of this recognizing that our community is hugely diverse, so really our focus has been to try to provide a very broad outreach effort using all platforms, whether it's in person or through electronic means. But it's another tool for us to really try to help our community be informed of what's really going on in their community.
The neat thing about the podcast, too, I think it gives us that ability to have an extended conversation. It's really hard when somebody asks a question on social media to give an in-depth answer.
Absolutely right. And that's kind of one of the frustrating things, I think, for us, especially that have been in this business for a long time. It's easy to not trust government, and it's even easier perhaps not to trust your local government. And for us, we have views here as a city that we're an open book. There's nothing to hide. We want to be very, very transparent. And so this is just another way for us to be able to open the book to the public, share what's going on, answer the hard questions, answer the easy questions. We're here providing a public service, and so we just want to do everything we can to provide the right information, not the wrong information, to our residents.
I think, too, our community is getting to meet like you, and they've met some of our deputy city managers. It's a neat way to introduce our staff to our community.
Well, and as an organization for us, we're extremely proud of those that work for this organization. We've got an amazingly talented group, and we know that here in our four walls. We want our community to know. We want our community to know that as well, and we want our community to be proud about the fact that they've got very talented, highly dedicated individuals looking out for their better interests.
What projects from the last year are you most proud of?
For me, they all seem to blend together because every year we're accomplishing so much in terms of providing services back to the community. But certainly having finally completed the construction of our new Wellness and Recuperative Care Center, of course, that's getting a lot of attention, but that's the city's response to a very serious issue that, quite honestly, we've been hearing very loudly communicated by our residents and even our businesses for many, many years, even preceding my role beginning here as city manager. The more direct feedback we were getting from the community was, you got to do something. And so as easy as that sounds, we had to develop a strategy. All the time and the hard work that went into coming up with the vision for the Wellness Center, getting the funding in place for the Wellness Center, finally to get it open to where we're actually providing a location where we can house our unsheltered individuals that are in need of support and assistance. And that's one of the projects most recently that we're most proud of. I think the other project this year that was big for us was the Animal Adoption Center that we just opened. And that is 18 months of work in not only developing a vision, developing a relationship with our local high school district to actually repurpose one of their unused school facilities, and actually repurposing that to serve another major need that our community and residents were demanding from us that we do something about, and that's provide place of care for our unsheltered animals, but then also have it serve as a place where we can openly connect with our residents and promote adoption of our animals that are really in need of a forever home.
Looking ahead to the coming year, what are some of the things that you can share with our residents that maybe they're can get a sneak preview of?
So on the look forward, just on the public infrastructure side, and that's something that we're constantly monitoring and constantly attending to, especially given the limited nature of the funds. But we're every year trying to knock out really a major roadway, a point or thoroughfare, I should say, in our community. And so our next major focus, now that we've just got done with major roadway improvements to Bear Valley Road, we're looking forward to actually making some major improvements on Mojave Drive, effectively from I-15 to Elevado Road. Roy Rogers Road, really right here in the center part of town, is in much need as well. So those are the two roadway projects that come to mind right away that I think the community will they'll feel the pain first, because of course it'll slow things down when we've got the construction crews out there. But obviously the after effect, when all the rehabilitation and road reconstruction is done, it's going to provide a much nicer driving surface and experience for our residents. Of course, we broke ground recently on the Victorville Library, which is located at the Green Tree Golf Course. And so that is under construction right now, and we're expecting the construction of that to be completed sometime towards the latter part of next year. And so that'll be a new library with expanded space compared to the space that we're currently operating in, providing a much nicer, more modern, more thought out learning environment for those that rely on the library for their services. And with that, we're using it as an opportunity to enhance some of the golf course clubhouse facilities as well, to right-size that in such a way where it's more accommodating to the golf patrons that we have at the golf course. So that's a big one for us next year. Certainly, we're expecting to see more economic development out at the airport right now. Under construction is about 1.3 million square feet of industrial space for the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, and that's on the heels of a similarly sized facility just recently being completed for Amazon. So we're going to see some continued industrial development take place there. And of course, why that's important for us is because our mission, ever since taking over what was George Air Force Base, now Southern California Logistics Airport, our biggest mission is to recapture the jobs that are lost, and we're still doing that. And so seeing this continued industrial build out is really helping us achieve that goal. So definitely expecting to see more of that. You know, a big part of the success that we're seeing there has a direct effect on what happens in our community. We've seen a fairly meaningful amount of commercial growth. So we're seeing and expecting in this next year some meaningful retail development. It's hard to really talk about some of the specific users right now because it's too early in the process to disclose. I do know there's been public mention about Raising Cane's, and I only bring that up because people love chicken, it seems. And there was quite a craze, of course, when Chick-fil-A came to town, and we're starting to see the buzz around Raising Cane's. So certainly can share that with you. But things right now from a commercial development perspective seem really hot, just north here of City Hall. And so we're certainly expecting to see some really meaningful development in the Civic Center, Desert Sky Plaza area is what it's called. I think finally one thing that's a forward look that might be 2 years out, we're in the design phase right now of a much larger police department. A police department that's going to be about 40 to 45,000 square feet, much bigger than the 13,000 plus or minus square feet that is currently serving our police department. And that in and of itself is going to give us really an opportunity to advance our public safety policing services to the community. So it would be at the northwest corner of what is Civic Drive and Seneca, directly across the street and west of the Capozio GMC dealership. A lot to come. It's something that we're obviously very, very excited about, and certainly hope that once those things are built out, our residents will be just as excited.
It'll be more of a plaza where we can also have events and things?
It is, and so we're actually going through that design right now. We're taking some of the vision and the ideas and the feedback that we've gotten from some of the public meetings that we've held. And so beyond a police station, we also want to build some kind of civic community plaza connected to it, to where it effectively serves as a destination, daytime and perhaps even into the evening, where residents can actually come to and find it as an environment where they just want to enjoy it and hang out. So certainly looking to build some nice amenities to attract just daytime activity. It's also envisioned that we build part of the Civic Plaza to include a location where we can actually better host some of our public events.
Now, one of the things that we have you here, we thought it would be fun to pick your brain and ask you some of the questions that we've received from some of our residents. And so if you'll indulge us, we're going to ask you some of those questions.
Okay.
Ron on Apple Podcasts would like to know, why is the city expenditure so close to revenues?
I think the easy answer really is to recognize the nature of expenditures from a growth perspective to how revenues increase from a growth perspective. And it's been a longstanding tradition here, and it's not uncommon in a lot of other cities where the cost of the services grow at a rate that is just faster than the actual revenue generation. And so, a lot of the services that we provide as a city are dependent upon people, personnel. And just using personnel as an example, that's just one of those costs that continue to go up. Labor market constraints, certainly factor into that. Affordability, cost of living, inflation, things of those natures certainly factor in. That notwithstanding, we always try to find ourselves as highly competitive in the marketplace, because we definitely want to have the highest and best talent. We also want to retain the highest and best talent. So the cost of service is traditionally something that certainly doesn't reverse and continues to go up. And sadly, when you're able to compare it to some of our more discretionary revenue sources, such as property tax or even sales tax, those happen to grow at a very small rate. And so it's not uncommon for us to be dealing with that imbalance. And so it's just unfortunately the nature of the revenues and expense system that we're required to manage.
And just like, residents themselves who are facing higher costs when they go to the grocery store or what have you, we're a consumer also. So when we're trying to build something, the cost of the lumber and all this stuff is going up.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that just view the public agency as perhaps an agency that has an ability to print money, and I sure wish we could. So for us, we feel the pain just as much as the local residents. That's one of the big challenges is that we have is the expectation for the service from the city doesn't go away. It continues to grow. And in many respects, the expectation for the service is expected, but not at an increased cost. But just like any other individual or any other business, we're not a lot different. We get saddled with those same cost escalators.
Ron also asked how much money is allocated to emergency savings.
Local government finance is a little complicated, but I'll try to simplify it. In Victorville, we have probably 84 funds, which are like small businesses that we effectively manage the funds of those respective businesses. And so with that, each of those funds have their own revenues and expenses. But one of the things that we've done here in the city, especially over the last 6 years, we've developed what's called a reserve target or a reserve policy, where for all of the funds, especially the general fund and the Measure of P fund, we're targeting to keep a minimum of 18% of our annual expenditures as free cash available for a what if, an emergency. And so we've consistently been exceeding our reserve targets. And so with that, being in a position where we exceed our reserve targets, of course, that gives us a good sense that we're in a good fiscal position from a cash perspective, but it also gives us flexibility to take on new projects or services in trying to meet the needs of the residents.
So Ron also asked the question, how much money is allocated to salaries and how much is allocated to city improvements?
The salaries make up a big part of our budget. It's about a third of the cost, or saying it differently, the monies that we spend on improvements, including capital improvements, is about 3 times the actual personnel cost for the city.
We were able to talk about this a little bit during our economic development episode, but Level Earth on YouTube wants to know, what are the city's plans for Old Town Victorville?
We have a lot of plans, a lot of visions, I should say, is probably the better way to describe it. Old Town Victorville is something that we've been focused on for a very, very long time. One of the most immediate things that we're working on is basically developing a new street improvement plan along 7th Street, streetscape program as well, that's intended to provide an environment that's more conducive to attracting commercial and residential development, and even mixed-use development along that corridor from Forest to D Street. And so we are working on developing a design to transition that segment of roadway into one-way traffic in each direction, putting the on-street parking back on 7th Street to really try to help support and promote that pedestrian feel. And with that, we've spent a considerable amount of time in developing a CREA, which is a redevelopment tool or a financing mechanism that allows us to partner with the County of San Bernardino to basically generate incremental property tax revenue that is intended to be redirected in the area, reinvested in the area, to address everything from the need for additional infrastructure or to help encourage new vertical development in that area. So we're working very intently on putting that in place. We're actually in active conversations with the county about trying to finalize that whole mechanism. We're also looking at making major investments in the area by trying to develop sports type complex. We're working with the high school district currently and exploring an opportunity where we can actually utilize the former Victor Junior High School, which was also called University Prep at one point in time. It's now a vacant site. It's large enough to where we believe we can actually construct some recreational amenities, sports fields, which our hope there, if we can pull that off, would be to generate more traffic to the area, have it serve more as a destination, and with that, we believe that could be helpful in supporting some of that commercial development that we're trying to develop down there. Definitely a long-term project. Certainly wish it could happen overnight. But it's not something that we're ignoring. We're very much focused on it. Our ultimate goal is to really recreate a mixed-use, more pedestrian-friendly environment in Old Town.
And when we say mixed use, could you give some examples of that?
I think the easiest way to characterize it is if you can envision, probably 3-4-story type buildings with commercial, retail, space on the ground floor, and then vertical would be the residential elements where you're actually having residents living above those commercial businesses. We've actually done things that we think kind of speak to the larger recipe of getting developers and investors interested in the area. And so now with that, I think we're really at that point where we're focusing on some physical amenities that we can actually have serve as an attractant to the area. With the CREA, we certainly expect that that'll be kind of the final tool. And with that, we're definitely expecting to see folks take the risk, take the chance on actually investing in that area and building something substantial that I know the community wants.
Zomel on YouTube asks, does the city offer any programs for kids with special needs?
At this point, and I hate to say it, not currently. We've had an experience where we did, and due to lack of participation from the community, lack of demand from the community, and also financial constraints that sadly we've had experienced during that same course of time, we've had to cancel a lot of programs, but it's not something that we're ignoring. We're actively looking at reactivating those programs. We're really trying to connect with the community better and understand what their wants and needs are. That way, when we have a program launched, it's actually a program that our community needs.
And in the interim, families that have special needs are certainly welcome to reach out to Recreation and ask for modifications and see if we could accommodate them.
Absolutely, and we have a very accommodating community services department and recreation program. And so as we know more from our residents and hear more directly from them of what the needs and the demands are for the service, we're very responsive to providing those needs. 500
KLA on YouTube asks why our economic development team pays for an agency outside of California to market towards bringing businesses to the city.
I'm not actually aware that we're doing that. In fact, I know we're not. I do know for sure that we're involved with an organization here in California. It's actually called Team California, and it's an organization that helps us leverage resources from other allied communities throughout the entire state of California. So we work with Team California because it's a cost-effective way to do outreach to a larger national or even an international audience. A good example would be say going to trade shows, because trade shows is a big part of what economic development will do to go out and build relationships, make connections, promote the community, and actually trying to sell the community and its vision. It can be a very expensive proposition, and certainly our budget, along with those that are allies with us in the Team California model, all have constrained funds. And so in the event of going to a trade show, industry-related trade show, it allows us to be able to participate, but share in all of the costs associated with the actual event. And that includes the transportation of the booth, the actual hosting of the booth at the trade show, paying for all the fees associated with that. Beyond Team California, we have a very dedicated and robust economic development team here that also focuses on the promotion to all of the areas of industry, whether it's residential, commercial, aviation, you name it. We have a team dedicated to directly focus on the marketing, the outreach, and the promotion of the community, really intended to attract additional business for us.
Juan Ortiz on YouTube asks, how many of the people that have received homes via our wellness center are still housed?
To answer that question, I probably want to give a little bit about the wellness center and its role. And so first, the wellness center is effectively an interim housing facility. And so we'll house approximately 170. And the goal is to connect them either with family resources or move them into what's traditionally called transitional housing. And so we've had some good success there for all of those that we've graduated into the transitional housing environment. We haven't had any of those individuals actually returning to our facility. And I think I just want to be clear, because I don't necessarily want with the question the belief that people are connecting to our facility and walking out of this facility going into an actual giant home. It's not exactly that. It could be in terms of perhaps it's a home shared resource with others. But our focus is getting our residents into what's commonly referred to as a transitional housing environment, where they have a much more stable environment, where they can start living on their own and rebuilding their lives more independently.
Keith, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast and taking the time to answer all these questions. We really appreciate and value your knowledge.
No, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun, and certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thanks for listening. What's the TVV is produced by the City of Victorville. If you have a topic you would like to see on future episodes, leave a comment or review on your preferred platform.